The vast Soros media influence machine exposed. Um, People like George Soros and Bill Gates, these evil people, to cover up their evil deeds, they pay for the media exposure, the positive media exposure. So that way, people can't call them out on the evil deeds that they do. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. And there's also a link to my Instagram. All right, let's talk about this news. Progressive globalist billionaire George Soros uses his financial clout to wield an astonishingly strong influence over dominant establishment media outlets. What in more quaint journalism times have been called conflict of interest is now termed partnership to promote, quote, informed discourse. This is the actual wording used by Soros grant recipient, the Texas Tribune. A new report by the Media Research Center digs further into the tangled web it tallied up with, quote, at least 253 news and activist media organizations across the world financed by George Soros's philanthropic organizations. So you got these organizations funding them. Do you really think they're going to critique or criticize anything that George Soros is doing? Of course not. Of course not. So let's talk about Soros' global puppets. Uh, Quote, there is no publication that exemplifies Soros's hold on the global media more than Project Syndicate, self-dubbed the world's opinion page, says report authors Joseph Vasquez and Dan Snyder in the executive summary of their exhaustive analysis. Um, the following paragraph reveals how Soros propaganda can be channeled from one lavishly funded central hub to countless sources at local levels throughout the world. Quote, the publication boasts a global audience that includes prominent politicians, policymakers, scholars, business leaders, and civic activists from 6 continents and over 140 head of state. Project Syndicate claimed in its commentaries appeared in amazing 20,393 times in 156 countries in 2021 alone. Soros's Open Society Foundation, who I talk about them all the time. They're the ones that's for open borders and all of that stuff. I'm letting criminals walk free. They funneled at least 1,532,105 to Project Syndicate between 2016 and 2020. MRC also highlighted how the big box media touted, quote, fact check apparatus is nothing but a Soros mouthpiece. And I already alluded to that in multiple videos. Who fact check the fact checkers? These fact checkers aren't bipartisan. They're partisan, and they cape for the left the majority of the time. Quote: Soros gave $492,000 to finance the Poynter Institute leftist international fact-checking network between 2016 and 2020. The analysis reveals the network works with 100 so-called fact-checking organizations worldwide, distinguishing itself as a de facto ministry of truth. The same type of things that Biden was trying to implement before he got so much pushback from that. Uh, so now let's talk about cash for NPR and disinformation warriors. Taxpayer-supported NPR is another prominent media organ falling under Soros' sway. And mind you, they accept money from government as well. But quote, NPR received $600,000 from Soros Foundation in 2016. MRC states NPR currently exploits a weekly audience of 48 million, according to NPR network exclusive sponsorship representative National Public Media. For years, NPR has not bothered to hide its leftist bias. That's why I don't remember the last time I actually listened to anything from on NPR. But the outlet has moved further of late to push exotic radical issues that not so coincidentally happen to be top priorities of Soros. In September, Liberty Nation detailed NPR's shockingly forthright championing of sex education for kindergartners. Just ridiculous, sickening. Yet another Soros media project featured in the MRC report is quote free press. Quote, Soros's funded Free Press is an activist organization disguised as a journalism operation. It uses its sizable resources to push the federal government and big tech to silence conservative speech, the analysis states. Free Press boasts significant impact. It prides itself in how it receives 3,200 press hits in places including the Associated Press, Bloomberg, CNN, Democracy Now, The Guardian, The Los Angeles Times, MSNBC, NPR, Poynter, and Wired in 2021 alone. The Associated Press alone claimed the 4 billion people see news from the Associated Press every day, meaning that free press content cited by AP alone could have millions of readers. Um, Unsurprisingly, Soros is a leading funder of the enormous effort to quash opposition to the progressive ruling establishment agenda under the guise of combating so called disinformation. See, they use that term to silence people. Quote, the Soros funded Media Democracy Fund, MDF, is a dark money funding operation, the report states. MDF received $3,520,000 from Soros OSF between 2016 and 2020. But the money trail goes deeper than that. MDF is a project of the New Venture Fund, NVF, which, quote, received $50,321,490 from Soros between 2016 and 2020. MRC continues. It's a shadowy world with money moving from one murky cell to another, all to push Soros' priorities. And when we bring up Soros, when we talk about Soros, the left like to say, "Oh, they turned Soros into this boogeyman and da da da." No, we following the money and what agenda they're pushing. So let's talk about how it works at one prominent news site. A look at one U.S. media outlet adds context to this illuminating briefing. The Texas Tribune is presented as an online newspaper covering politics in the Lone Star State. It is frequently cited as a reliable news source by major dominant media organizations. In fact, the Tribune is heavily funded by partisan philanthropists, quote unquote, and corporate sponsors to such an extent that any claim to objectivity is laughable. $1 million plus donors include the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, of course, the staunchly leftist Ford Foundation, and the Facebook Journalism Project. Six-digit corporate donors include AT&T, Google, PepsiCo, and in-state universities, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Texas A&M. How can the Tribune pretend to offer neutral news coverage of these entities? No sweat. They simply type out a paragraph and call it a disclaimer. Quote, donors and members subscribe to the Texas Tribune belief that promoting greater civic engagement and informed discourse is a direct route to a better and more productive Texas. They play no role in guiding the journalism produced by the Tribune or planning or execution of events. Problem solved. So we were to believe that they're not biased at all by front of it. They're going to hold the donors' feet to the fire. They're going to question them. They're going to critique them. Look, we're supposed to believe that. But it is a 2020 article defending Soros that takes the cake. Quote, in false Facebook post, Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller accused George Soros of paying protesters to destroy the country. The headline to the article screams out. At the bottom of the article, the journalism ethics punchline is waiting. Disclosure: the Foundation to Promote Open Society, funded by George Soros, has been a financial supporter of the Texas Tribune, a nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization that is funded in part by donations from members, foundations, and corporate sponsors. Financial supporters play no role in the Tribune's journalism. So, right after they cape for this dude, they put that disclaimer out there. This would be deeply embarrassing to anyone truly dedicated to genuine journalism, but that is not what is happening here. The multitude of modern media hacks openly taking the George Soros money long ago abandoned the objective pursuit of fact. Because you can't name, you look at all of these articles they write on George Soros, you would not find anything negative pertaining to him. They are now devoted to amplifying, quote, truths, the deeply held political and social cultural belief that they feel are too important to be held back by neutrality. They don't need to justify their grotesque conflicts of interest to themselves, for they are fully committed to only one interest, and it isn't professionalism. Their globalist sugar daddy wouldn't have it any other way. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out democrepublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace. Oh, say, oh, say.